Oh, greetings to our Father's house, and thank you for joining us today. And those that are just new in relation to joining in on our teachings each week. And just for you to know that each week we do put up a snippet. It's around Tuesday or Wednesday, and it's there to help you. And it's great to understand and to hear back. So many people are not just blessed by it, but are able to use it in their churches and use it for a discussion document. So it's just wonderful. That's our purpose, to try and help you, to support you in different areas of teaching and so on. If you want manuals in relation to that, you should have a look at our webpage and see that there are some manuals that are available for teaching if you require those. And if you would do so by sending me an email, and then we can follow that through for you. Our email is fathershouse@outlook.co.nz. It's wonderful. So we've been looking at the whole aspect of yokes and what yokes are about, and we found that there are many, many different kinds of yokes. But to remember above all where we started, which was in Matthew 11:29, which says, "Take my yoke," this is Jesus, "take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am gentle and I am humble in heart." So here there's no pressure on that. It's just the yoke, being yoked to Christ, a yoke to his freedom. He says, "And you will find rest for your souls, and for my yoke is not easy and my burden is light." So the Lord is saying here, put away these other yokes and be yoked with me, and you'll find that you'll have a rest, a benefit, and would be one of support and not one of bondage in any way. So we see that as we've gone through here that we have touched on a number of different yokes that affect our life. And on the last one, it was more about company. Evil company corrupts good morals. And we looked at that in relation to relationships with people and businesses, whatever that is. But we see that that can bring us into a bondage as well. So here, the next one that I want to refer to, and over the next probably 3 or 4 snippets, I want to just wind up this topic and just trust it has been helpful for you. But here in Acts chapter 15 and verse 10, it says, "Now then, why do you try to test God by putting on the necks of the disciples a yoke that neither we nor your fathers have been able to bear?" And what that was, it's really a yoke of circumcision. The Old Testament, the old law, you go back into the laws of the day of when the children of Israel came out of the wilderness and to enter into the wilderness. And you see that they went through a circumcision. Why? Because that was a circumcision that God required of every male for the purpose of identifying them being different from everybody else. But during the walk through the wilderness, they neglected that. And so there came a time when they're about to enter into the promise, the land that God had given to them. They had to pause once they got across the river, and everybody that wasn't circumcised had to be so. And that was here. There's now you've got these Pharisees, if you like, or people coming in, religious people coming in and say, well, all these people, Peter, that are being converted and turning to Christ, they need to be circumcised. And this is where the comment came from. Peter coming back, he says, well, why do you put a neck of circumcision? Why do you put a yoke upon the disciples now, which you saw that your fathers couldn't uphold and couldn't do and couldn't perform? So why do you try and put that onto here? And of course, we understand that part of the liberty that we find in Christ is one that sets us free and not puts us into bondage. So there's a religion, a yoke of religion or bondages and restrictions that come upon us as well. Galatians 5 is a great scripture. In fact, all of that chapter is a great passage to read. But it says, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. For freedom that Christ has set us free. And what was that? Set us free from what? Set us from sin, which has a bondage to it, which binds us up, locks us up. And he says Jesus Christ is going to set us free from that. So stand firm then, and don't let yourselves be burdened again with the yoke of slavery. Yoke of slavery is the yoke of sin. And because with sin, the consequence of sin is not just death, but there's a consequence that impacts our body and our life and restrains us, and it takes away our freedoms. It brings guilt in its place and brings us into bondage. And so we see then there's a yoke of an employer towards an employee. That's an important yoke to understand, because probably most of us, one way or another, are employed. And in that employment, when we enter into a basis of employment from a company their representative, i.e. their manager and so on, and you to be the employee, you sign up on certain conditions. In other words, this is the basis of your employment. We often refer to those KPIs. That's key performance indicators, and that's given to us for us to be able to. And we need to agree to those before we're employed. And if there's something there that's really putting us in bondage, that's the time to deal with that. But here it's in Timothy, 1 Timothy 6, and it says, all you who are under the yoke of slavery, putting us here on the aspect of employee, should consider your masters worthy of full respect, so that God's name and our teaching may not be slandered. In other words, he's saying that we should give respect to our employers and those who employ us, who are our masters, if you like. We should give respect to them. And that's why I come back to the point that when we're employed, if there's something there that you're not happy about, that is a time to deal with that and find out whether there's a compromise, whether you need to do it or whether you don't do it, or what the consequences are of you being able to perform that particular area of activity, maybe skill level, and so on. So it's very important to understand there's a relationship here. He says, let us consider our masters, don't mouth off against them, but understand here that we can bring on the yoke from all of that into our lives. So there's a yoke of works. Yoke that can be abuse of control over us. The term yoke of an employer traditionally refers that it's a burden of responsibility. And an obligation means because we're employed to do things, then we are expected to do it. It's our responsibility and it's our obligation. The constraining nature of employment historically, a yoke is a wooden frame. We understand, we've looked at all of that. That brings two animals together that can be yoked to go and plow the field or to take a cart down the road and so on. But in modern workplace context, this yoke refers to the contractual agreements and the legal obligations that we set from an employer as an employee. So they're very, very important. Some aspects to look at in here. There's a bit of a teach today, and I trust they're helpful, but it's contractual obligations. In other words, what we sign up for. So be careful before you sign up to something to understand what you're signing up to. And there's a subordination of duty. An employee is required to follow lawful instructions, even though we don't like that. So again, we deal with that right up front, and we have a discussion in relation to it. There's financial dependence and comes into play. Necessity to earn a living means that employees are bound by an employers for their income. And we have that, you have that across there in Africa and across India, Pakistan, up into Rwanda, and different areas here. You have those areas of employment, and there's an expectation that comes with that. And the fulfillment of those expectations determine your payment and if you get paid or when you get paid and how much you get paid and so on. There's a performance pressure. Sometimes we have those areas, I guess, in my own life, and we've had many different aspects of employment, and both from a perspective of being employed, so an employee, and also to be the employer that employs people. And we see that performance comes a part of that. Often there are areas of performance for numbers to be achieved. If you're in a sale area, it's a certain value of sales or multiple of number of sales. What is that about? Or maybe it's a customer service aspect of it, or it's a meeting and greeting with people. But they are performance. They can bring pressure on us if we are not capable, or we feel inadequate, or we're living with some kind of bondage in us. See, that's the basis of freedom. To be yourself, be free, and allow God to minister to you and to those that are around you. Then there's a restricted freedom. Sometimes a restriction that an employee has to face. It's freedom of action. We're prevented from doing some things that we would like to do. Again, because of the basis of the contract or the yoke that we've taken on, that we've accepted, and our employment aspect of all of that. So there's just a few pointers there for you today and to understand. And we're going to give you some more scriptures in the next one. And then I want to unfold some aspects of truth about financial burden or financial yokes. So I trust that's helpful for you today. I pray for every listener here today, Father. I pray that you give them understanding of these areas and give them the grace and the ability and the confidence to be able to present themselves for places of employment, but to make clear the basis of their employment. What are the expectations to make sure that they can hold their employment, and also the expectation in relation they can receive their income. So I trust it's helpful to you. I try, let's continue to look to God. I mean, overall, He is our master above all else. And that's why He talks about taking His yoke. It's light, it's easy. Take His yoke upon you first, and then you're able to walk in these other different areas of life. Well, God bless you. You have a wonderful week. Why don't you discuss this now amongst yourselves, praying for one another, and then maybe circulate this to others that they can benefit from it. So until next time, God bless you, and you have a wonderful week.